that some of you may have challenges with. And that aspect is, how is it that all the residents of Ayodhya, Dasara, Ram, and Sita are put into so much difficulty? First time I read the Ramayana, I thought, oh, this is a tragedy. But then, as we began to understand more and more about Lord Rama's pastimes and who Lord Rama is, and the exchanges of love between Lord Ramchandra and Sita, and of course Lakshman, Hanuman, then we understood it is a love story. So you may say, how is it a love story? Because in most love stories, what happens at the end? They live happily ever after, right? Am I right? I'm sure you read some of these Bollywood, or seen some of the Bollywood movies, where they live happily ever after. Well, apparently at the end of the Ramayana, there's not a happily ever after. And apparently throughout the Ramayana, there's all these difficulties that everybody is going through. And many of you think that if I worship God, there's no difficulties. He'll take away all my troubles. Well, He will take away all your troubles. I'll explain that in a second. However, when Lord Ram apparently undergoes troubles, these troubles are due to they produce an exchange of ras. Now, for those of you who don't know what ras means a taste for a relationship. You know, we all have taste for relationships, or even taste for food that we eat, or anything we do. A taste means what you feel when you're doing it. I mean, food is obvious. There's a taste, there's a bitter taste, a sweet taste, and a sour taste, all sorts of tastes you get from eating food. However, in relationships, there's also taste. And the Lord, that's whether we're talking about Krishna or Rama, because they're actually the same person, Advaita, Chitta, Navami, Ananta, Rupa, Madhyam, Purana, Purusham, Navayoga, Raja. They enjoy the taste in their relationships. But the taste in their relationships are full of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. So I'm going to explain, hopefully, how what's apparently painful in the Ramayana creates ecstasy for Lord Rama. Now, of course, there's many painful things that occur. Actually, I noted down all the painful things that occur in the Ramayana. And I got to 37. And I'm not going to list them all, or else you're all going to want to not worship Rama. But anyway, so many, many different things, beginning with Ram being born. Of course, before Ram was born, Dasara was in pain because he couldn't have kids. Then they had to call to have a Putra Kameshti ceremony by a sage who had never seen his mother his whole life. I'm not going to go into that story because it's really long. And then, after Ram is 16 years old, Ram is taken away by Visvamitra Muni to fight with the Rakshasa, and Dasarath is feeling pain at that particular point. And then Ram finally comes back with his wife, Devi, and of course the brothers, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughna also have their appropriate wives. And then Dasarath is thinking, let me enthrone Ram. And then what happens? Ram is banished at the behest of Kaikeyi. And then Dasarath feels separation as Ram enters into the forest with Sita and Lakshman. Right? And then Dasarath dies, feeling separation. Oh my God, what a tragedy. Of course, it's also the tragedy that Ram is banished. And so Ram goes into the forest. Bart comes back. There's some I'm trying to go through the whole thing. Oh my God. And he feels separation and anger towards both his mother and Manthara, that nice lady. And then he goes to get Ram, and Ram refuses to come back. Ram refuses to come back. He wants, Bharat agrees to take over the administration of Ayodhya, but he wants to accept Ram's padukars as the king. So he's worshipping Ram in separation at that point. It's called vipralamba, it's a technical word. And he's feeling so much separation that he vows to kill himself if Ram doesn't come back after 14 years. You can imagine all this pain. I'm going to explain how it's nice. So all this day, so Bharat is feeling pain. Of course, Lakshman's wife, Urmila, is feeling pain, but she's not even allowed to cry. Right? So Lakshman says, you can't cry for 14 years. How many of you ladies can do that? 14 minutes? 14 hours? So, there's intense anxiety on Bharat's part. And finally, Sita and Ram, Lakshman are in the forest and enjoying life. And then Sita is kidnapped. And then Ram is complete anxiety. At one point, he threatens to destroy the whole Earth planet if Sita's not delivered to him. And then he sees Jatayu being killed. And more pain. Oh my God. Then he goes to the south to try to find, very quickly the whole mind. So he goes to the south to find Sita Devi, or to find someone to help him find Sita Devi. And he goes through different adventures. Eventually he comes across Hanuman and the monkeys, Sugriva. And Sugriva, of course, is feeling pain because he's separated from his wife, who's been taken away by his brother Bali. And then Ram kills Bali, and then everyone's feeling anxiety because Bali has been killed. So there's so much difficulty there. Then there's that, then the monkeys and everybody are sent to the south, and Hanuman is sent to the south to try to find where Sita is. Hanuman flies across the ocean, finds Sita Devi. She's feeling great separation. She's crying, Ram, Ram, Ram all the time, being harassed by this Rakshasa, Ravan. Not a nice situation. And so she's in a difficult situation. Hanuman comes back, okay, and the army comes to the shore of the ocean with Ram at that particular juncture. And they don't know how to cross the ocean. And Ram is feeling anxiety, everyone's feeling anxiety because they can't cross the ocean. And Ram tries his best to get Varuna to come and help him cross the ocean. And Varuna doesn't show up, and Ram gets angry, another emotion. All these emotions, anger, anxiety, distress, separation. Wow. And he's God. So what to speak of us? Okay. We'll get to the explanation of this in a few seconds. So then, so then Ram goes, and with the monkeys they cross the ocean, Situbanda, and they come and they fight with Ram. So many things happen. But what happens at one particular juncture, Ram and Lakshman are knocked unconscious and they have to be subjected to the snake weapon. And so everybody's in anxiety. And they're all devotees. They're all in anxiety. And even Sita's in anxiety when she hears that they're the snake weapon. They're gonna die before the next sunrise. Of course, then Garuda comes and saves them. Then they come back, and at a particular point, Lakshman is hit with the Shakti Shila weapon by Indrajit, and Ram is in more anxiety. I can't live without Lakshman. Finally, Hanuman brings the Ritu Sanjeevani back and cures Lakshman. In the meantime, at one particular juncture, Indrajit comes out with a false Sita, an image of Sita, cuts her head off. And Rama's in anxiety, Sita's died. A similar thing happens with Rama. He goes with what is apparently the head of Sita, of Ram, sorry. He goes with the head of Ram to Sita in the Ashok Grove, and he says, look, we just killed Ram. So Sita's put in anxiety. It's a whole talk about anxiety, distress, separation. Okay. So fast forward, not so fast forward. Finally, the demons are killed. The Rakshasas are killed, except for Vibhishan. And Vibhishan is in anxiety because his brothers have been killed, and his sister has just had a nose job. So it wasn't done so expertly like a plastic surgery. Also, she had an ear job too, years ago. So, all right. So then Sita comes back. And she's carried in a palanquin by the monkeys or whatever to see Ram. And she gets out of the palanquin, and Ram says to her, "You can go anywhere you like, lady." Can you imagine? All year long, you're just like hankering for your husband, chanting his name, Ram, Ram, Ram. And your husband says, "Just go anywhere you like. I saved you. I did my duty killing the Rakshasas. This is my duty. But really, go anywhere you like." And everyone is shocked hearing this. This is Valmiki Ramayana. Then, finally it's decided, okay, she wants to prove her chastity. She has to enter the fire. Lakshman is angry. He has to prepare the funeral pyre. She goes in, and then, of course, the real Sita comes out of the fire. And so, all right, so Ram is united with Sita at that time. Go back to Ayodhya. Okay, what happens in Ayodhya? One of the first things, what? The washerman comes. And Ram, wanting to hear what his citizens think of him, he goes out in disguise. Jai, not to get rid of the Jai, So Ram goes in disguise. He's the washerman talking about things. The washerman's going to reject his wife. And Ram understands, oh my God, I can't be the king because people won't trust me because they don't think that Sita was chaste. So the only solution, send her away. So he tells Lakshman, tell Sita Devi you're going for a trip. Because Sita Devi, it's an interesting story about making Ramayana, that Sita Devi, she was thinking, actually before I give birth, because she's pregnant, I want to visit the forest again. So she's thinking she's going for a forest ride. And so Lakshman takes her, drops her off in the forest near the ashram of Valmiki Muni, and he says, well, he doesn't just say, he faints to the ground, complete anxiety, how can Ram do this? And leaves Sita there. So then Ram and Sita are separated for some period of time. Another distress there. Story of distresses. Then, oh my God. Maybe we're in the wrong movement. So another story of distress. There's a break. Rama has to do these Rajasuya sacrifices, Ashwamedha and Rajasuya sacrifices. So he needs Sita there. Because the king or Brahmin has to have his wife with him when they're doing sacrifices. So then he has to make a golden statue of Sita Devi and see her every day and feeling separation from her. And he's also taken this Ekapatni Vrata, so there's no question of marrying another wife. So he's there for all these years, and it's described it was a long period of time. So then eventually he decides to do a Rajasuya sacrifice, and he sends out the challenge horse. To make a long story short, the challenge horse is stopped by Lav and Kush, and Lav and Kush are able to challenge Bharat and Shatrughna, Lakshman, and Hanuman. And Ram has the challenge, and he discovers Lav and Kush are his children. Okay? And then they're thinking, well, maybe Sita should come back. And actually, Lav and Kush had to suffer their whole lives not understanding who their father was. And Sita Devi was suffering too. Okay, so then, it's decided, well, Valmiki Muni thinks, well, Sita Devi can come back, and I'll attest to her chastity. So he brings Sita Devi back, and he says, Sita Devi's been chaste. She's been in my ashram the whole time. And Ram says, all right, but she has to take a vow that she's never violated her chastity, never thought of any other man other than me, then I accept her back. See, today you say, this is too much. I mean, we went into a fire, we were sent away to the woods, and now you want me to promise and say that I was never unchaste? What kind of marriage is this? So she says, Mother Earth, take me away. And the earth opens up, takes her away, and she's feeling anxiety separation from Rama. Rama's angry, he's ready to split the earth, destroy the earth. And for 60,000 years he has to be king of Ayodhya, actually emperor at that time, without his wife. Subscribe to the bell, make you remind. 60,000 years. Can anyone here live without their wives for 60,000 years? Don't raise your hand, you get in trouble. They probably said any amount of time. So, but Ram and Sita, they love each other. They're perfect. Sometimes we talk about marriages. What's a compatible marriage? Ram and Sita, right? Perfect compatibility. 100% if you do the astrological calculation. So Ram and Sita are separated 60,000 years. Okay, that's not the end of the pain. Then Ram is meeting with Kalpurush to tell him it's time to leave your earthly pastimes. Okay. But he tells Lakshman to stand guard, and anyone who interferes will have to be banished by me. And so Lakshman has to interfere because Durvasa Muni comes. And then Ram has to banish Lakshman. Lakshman enters the Sarayu river, manifests his form as Seshanath. And Ram is separated from Lakshman, who he's been with all these years. Lakshman has been like Ram's shadow. Lakshman did not eat in the forest the whole time, or sleep in the forest the whole time he was with Sita and Rama. And he just gazed him away. So sad. And then, well, the final aspect of the pastimes is that Ram decides to leave this world by entering into the Sarayu river. And he tells all the residents of Vrindavan, not Vrindavan, sorry, I'm thinking of Krishna, Ayodhya. He tells all the residents of Ayodhya that you can go back to Godhead with me. But he says to Hanuman, what? You can't. You have to stay in the material world as long as the Ramayana is being chanted. So Hanuman has this, it's not a condemnation, but actually, it's painful. So he's always there in Kimpurusha Loka chanting Sita Ram, and worshipping Sita Ram in separation. And also Vibhishan, the same thing. Vibhishan wasn't allowed to go back to Godhead. So, anyway, so now I'm going to get into the philosophy. We have 5 more minutes. So why is this? And even if you think about, of course, Ram's feelings of separation and everything, and you also think of Krishna, his pastimes, you see that Krishna also left Vrindavan at an early age. Some people say 12, some people say 16. And left the gopis, residents of Vrindavan, crying for the rest of their lives. And you also see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What's that? No. We saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also left his home and family, and his wife was only 16 years old. So you have all these different stories of the Lord's pastimes where there's intense separation. Okay, here's the explanation. That when one feels separation from the Lord, from Lord Ramachandra, Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that feeling of separation is non-different. The Lord manifests his presence in that feeling of separation. It doesn't work in the material world when we feel separation from someone or some place. We're not in that place. We're not associating with that person. That person is somewhere else, thinking something different. But when Sita and Ram were feeling separation, they were experiencing the highest ecstasy. Because there was connection. Everything about Krishna and Krishna's devotees, Lord Ram and Lord Ram's devotees, Lord Ram and his expansions, is non-different from Lord Ram. For example, we have deities that we're going to be bathing in a second, of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman, and they are there. You may say, I want to go see Lord Rama. Okay, here you go see Lord Rama. Sometimes Prabhupada was asked the question, can you see Krishna? And Prabhupada sometimes answered, yes, just looking right now and see Krishna. I see Krishna, don't you? Because that's the form of the Lord. So the form of the Lord, the Archamurti, the name of Krishna, the name of Ram, Sita Ram, Raghupati, Raghuvaraj, Ram, Hanuman, oh Hanuman. Sorry, I didn't get that. So it's not different. And you're brought closer together with the object of your devotion. And Sita is brought closer to Ram. And the relationship becomes more relishable. And Radha is brought closer to Krishna through the feelings of separation. Because if we look at the Ramayana from our materialistic point of view, we may think it's a tragedy. But if we look at it through the spiritual point of view, through the description of the Acharyas, we'll see that Ram and Sita and Lakshman and Hanuman are experiencing the greatest happiness. Because it's described that happiness of separation is actually connection. That may appear to you to be a mystery. But the more intense the emotion is, the more the connection is there. That is also an indication for us that when we are chanting the Lord's holy name, when we are worshiping the deities, we should be having intense emotions. Just like it's described, we chant this prayer every morning. Mahaprabhu Kirtana Richagita Paditruan Yadmanasel Vasena. This is a description of some of what we call bhavas or emotions. When the devotee of Krishna chants about Krishna, or chants about Lord Chaitanya, or chants about Lord Rama, he feels or she feels quivering in the body, hairs standing on end. Listen, I don't have too many hairs. But anyway, if you're young, you can do it. You can do it. Hairs standing on end, tears, Ashrutananda Bhaja, tears coming from the eyes, like torrents of rain. So even when we read the Ramayana, and so, like I mentioned, some of you ladies may cry hearing the Ramayana. And actually, it's painful for me. But that pain is remembrance of Lord Rama. That pain is remembrance of Sita Devi. That pain is remembrance of Hanuman, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughna. And helps me connect with them more. So when we chant and do our bhajan, or we do our bhakti, because bhakti means love. And love means all sorts of emotions. In the analysis given by our acharyas, there's 5 basic relationships of love. There's peaceful relationship where you just worship someone. There's the servitor relationship where you become their servant. There's the friendship relationship, parental relationship, like Ram had his parents, he had his friends, he had his servants. And there's a conjugal relationship. Of course, with Ram, that was only Sita Devi. With Krishna, so many gopis. And so many wives, 16,000. Of course, many of the personalities who met Ram during his pastimes later on became gopis, which is interesting. So, these are the basic relationships. But to enjoy relationships, there has to be some flavor to it. Like you have some basic vegetables you eat, but you have to put garam masala in it. Right? So there are 7 secondary aspects or tastes of relationships. And these are things like humor, anxiety, even ghastliness, because Ram liked to kill the demons, the Rakshasas. And so these particular moods flavor the relationships. Even Krishna, he likes to make his wives angry sometimes. He likes to make the gopis angry. But if you try to make your wife angry, it's not good. You just listen to her. Everyone will be at least ladies. No. So, but Krishna enjoys that. He tried to make Rukmini angry. And she became angry, and Krishna said, wow, I wanted you to be angry. I'm enjoying it. Because it's a relationship. In spiritual relationship, there's never disconnection. And so that's the explanation of the apparent tragedy in the Ramayana, but it's the ecstasy that Rama and Sita are enjoying. They chose to do that. Because the demons could have been killed by anybody. In fact, even Lord Ram made arrangements for the demons to be there. Ravana is actually his devotee. He's not just an ordinary run-of-the-mill demon. He's actually the devotee of Ram. He was sent from the spiritual world because Ram wanted to enjoy these different races. So everything Ram and Sita do is actually enjoyment from their particular perspective. And a great source of ecstasy, even if it apparently is something else to us. So, I guess it's time for the Abhishek, right? Thank you very much. All glories to Sri Rama, all glories to Sita Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman, ki jai. And Bharata Shatrugna, and even Kaikeyi, and Mantra, Kaushalya. Okay. Prabhupada ki jai.
Wait, live.
One more time, let's hear it for his own, let's hear it for So you can... So Hare Krishna, so we will be starting with the Abhishek. So first and foremost, the Brahmins who will do the Abhishek nowadays, we will be giving the opportunity to everyone to do the Abhishek. However, I know you won't follow, but still I'll say. So that's where you have to make the line form. Please avoid standing in a crowd so that if you are standing, then you'll be blocking the darshan, those who are sitting. So we'll highly appreciate if you are seated or you are standing, just maybe 15 in the beginning. Rest, sit down. Maybe the seniors can come first. Yeah. And please don't overcrowd the area so that darshan is not being disturbed by others who are watching. Humble request. Don't stand if you are over here. Don't stand if you are over there. And don't stand if you are over here. Let that crowd go first and then you move on. Can you do it?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
For the pleasure of Lord Ram. Jai Shri Ram!
Jai Shri Ram.
Hold hands up, everyone. Yeah. Yes. And at the top of your voice, Jai Shri Ram! Jai Shri Ram! Shri Ram! Jai Shri Ram! Jai Shri Ram! Jai Shri Ram! Jai Shri Ram!
come closer, come closer. Those are watching, it's Facebook Live. It's live, Facebook Live. I'm doing Facebook Live. लाइव है ठीक गुरुदेव लगता है ना जैसे फिनिश कर दिया कर देना अभी हमें मैं अभिषेक करके मजा आता हूँ
Masuk gua lagi.